The waste reclamation tunnels of Station Terminus 7 hummed with the sound of processing machines. Deep in the lower levels, where most beings refused to work, Nari moved through the shadows like a ghost. Her 6 legs carried her silently across the metal floors as she checked the filtration systems. The work was dirty and dangerous, but she preferred it this way. Down here, nobody could see her. Nari was Vexthara, an insectoid species known throughout the galaxy for their beautiful symmetrical carapaces and striking violet eyes. But Nari possessed neither of these qualities. Her chitinous shell showed irregular patterns, darker on one side than the other. Her left antenna was noticeably shorter than her right. Worst of all, her compound eyes glowed with an amber color that made other Vexthara recoil in disgust. Among her people, she was considered a mistake of nature, an aberration, ugly. She had learned this truth early in life. Her clutch mother had taken one look at her after pupation and abandoned her at the nearest charity station. The other young Vexthara she grew up with had clicked their mandibles in mockery whenever she approached. As she matured, the rejection only deepened. Potential employers would see her face during interviews and suddenly find reasons to hire someone else. Social gatherings went silent when she entered. Even strangers on the street would hurry past as if her appearance might be contagious. So Nari had stopped trying. She took the job nobody wanted, working the night shifts in the station's deepest levels. She lived in a tiny quarters no bigger than a storage closet. She communicated through digital interfaces whenever possible, sending messages rather than speaking face-to-face. It was a lonely existence, but loneliness was better than the constant reminder of her ugliness reflected in others' eyes. Tonight, like every night, Nari worked in silence. Her tasks were simple but necessary. The station housed over 10,000 beings from hundreds of different species. All that waste had to go somewhere, had to be processed and recycled. She checked pressure valves, cleared blockages, and monitored the chemical converters that turned refuse into usable materials. It was honest work, even if nobody thanked her for it. Through the grated floors, she could sometimes hear the sounds of the station's main levels above. Laughter, music, conversation, life happening somewhere she was not welcome. Nari had become skilled at ignoring those sounds, but tonight they seemed louder somehow. She paused in her work, tilting her head to listen. The station's public address system crackled to life. A smooth artificial voice announced the arrival of a diplomatic vessel from Earth. Nari felt a small flutter of curiosity. Humans were relatively new to the Galactic Coalition, having only made first contact 40 years ago. She had never seen one in person. From what she had heard, they were strange mammals with only 2 legs and smooth skin instead of proper shells. Some species found them disturbing to look at, though Nari thought this was rather hypocritical coming from beings who found her own appearance revolting. She returned to her work, dismissing the announcement. Important visitors never came down to the lower levels. They stayed in the comfortable zones above, where the lights were bright and the air was perfumed. The waste tunnels were beneath their notice, just like the workers who maintained them. Hours passed. Nari's shift was nearly over when her translator device began to malfunction. The small unit attached to her thorax sputtered and hissed, producing garbled static instead of translating the station's automated warnings. She clicked her mandibles in frustration. A broken translator was a serious problem. Without it, she could not understand the emergency alerts or communicate with the station's central computer. Replacing the device required filing a maintenance request in person. The automated kiosks could not verify her identity without a working translator. Nari felt her stomach sack tighten with dread. Going to the administration office meant traveling to the main levels during day hours. It meant being seen. She considered simply working without a translator, but quickly dismissed the idea. Safety regulations were strict for good reason. If an emergency occurred and she could not understand the warnings, she could die. Or worse, her ignorance could cause an accident that harmed others. Nari might be ugly, but she was not careless with other people's lives. With deep reluctance, she made her way to the transport lifts. The journey up through the station's levels felt like ascending toward judgment. The lower levels were dimly lit and industrial. The middle levels grew brighter and cleaner. By the time she reached the administrative sections, everything gleamed with polished metal and soft lighting. Nari kept her head down as she scuttled through the corridors. Even so, she felt the stares, heard the whispered comments. A group of merchant beings pressed themselves against the wall as she passed, as if she carried disease. Two Vexthera officials saw her and quickly turned down a different corridor, their disgust obvious in their rigid posture. The administration office was busy with beings filing various requests and complaints. Nari found an empty corner and tried to make herself small. She waited for her turn, watching the orderly chaos around her. So many different species, all managing to work together to form relationships and friendships. She saw a methane-breathing Qualix laughing with a silicon-based Terrium, their biology so different that they needed environmental suits just to occupy the same space. Yet they had found common ground, found connection. Nari would never have that. Her own species could barely stand to look at her. Station manifest reports unusual cargo movements in Section 7 Gamma, a voice said nearby. Nari glanced up and saw a being unlike any she had encountered before. He had to be human, based on the Earth diplomatic uniform he wore. He was tall, bipedal, with dark hair and eyes that seemed almost kind as he spoke to the administrator. His name tag read Tae-sung. The administrator, a pompous Vrelian with purple scales, dismissed his concern with a wave. Section 7 Gamma is waste reclamation. Nothing important happens down there. You are mistaken, human. Tae-sung frowned slightly. My sensors don't make mistakes. I'm requesting permission to investigate. Denied. We cannot waste resources chasing sensor ghosts. Nari felt a strange impulse to speak up. She worked Section 7 Gamma. She knew every tunnel, every chamber, every system. If something unusual was happening there, she would know. But she remained silent. Important people did not listen to ugly maintenance workers, especially not ugly maintenance workers who were Vexithera. Her turn came eventually. She filed her translator request, enduring the clerk's poorly concealed revulsion. The replacement would take 3 days to arrive. She would have to return to fill out more forms then. The thought made her want to hide in her quarters and never emerge. As she turned to leave, the human diplomat was still there, studying a datapad with a furrowed brow. He looked up as she passed, and their eyes met for just a moment. Nari waited for the expected reaction. The flinch, the look of disgust, the quick glance away. Instead, Tae-sung simply nodded at her. A brief, polite acknowledgement of her existence. Nothing more, nothing less. It was such a small gesture, but Nari felt something strange flutter in her chest. He had looked at her face and had not turned away. She hurried toward the transport lift, disturbed by the encounter. It meant nothing. Humans probably could not tell a beautiful Vexithera from an ugly one. His politeness was just ignorance, not kindness. But as she descended back to her familiar tunnels, back to her safe shadows, Nari found herself thinking about that brief nod. About eyes that had seen her without judgment. It was a dangerous thing to think about. Hope was dangerous when you were as hideous as she was. The tunnels welcomed her back into their embrace. She had work to do. The station's waste did not process itself, and thinking about handsome human diplomats who did not know enough to be disgusted by her was a waste of time. Still, she thought about it anyway. 3 days passed slowly for Nari. She worked her shifts without a translator, relying on visual indicators and her knowledge of the systems. Everything went smoothly until the second night, when she noticed something odd. Several waste containers in Section 7 Gamma showed signs of tampering. The security seals were broken, then poorly resealed. Someone had been accessing areas they should not. Nari documented everything with her personal recorder. She was not sure what it meant, but irregularities in the waste system could indicate smuggling or illegal dumping of hazardous materials. Both were serious crimes. She decided to mention it when she filed her report about the translator replacement. The third day arrived too quickly. Nari made the dreaded journey back to the administration office, timing her arrival for early morning when fewer beings would be present. The new translator device was ready, and she had to complete final paperwork to receive it. She kept her head down, moving quickly through the corridors. The administration office was quieter this time, but not empty. Nari's heart sank when she saw 2 Vexithara officials waiting near the counter. They noticed her immediately. Their antennae straightened in disgust, and they moved to the far side of the room, clicking their mandibles in the way her people did when expressing revulsion. The clerk who had helped her before saw her and sighed heavily, as if her presence was a great burden. The replacement unit, Nari said quietly, trying to make her voice small and unobtrusive. She placed her requisition number on the counter and stepped back, giving everyone maximum distance from her offensive appearance. Before the clerk could respond, The door opened behind her. Nari instinctively moved aside, pressing herself against the wall to take up as little space as possible. The human diplomat entered, the one called Tai-sung. He carried a datapad and looked focused on some official business. The clerk's attitude changed immediately. "Ah, Ambassador. How may I assist you today?" The title surprised Nari. He was not just a courier then, but someone of importance. "I'm following up on my request from 3 days ago," Tai-sung said, "about investigating Section 7 Gamma. I've detected more anomalies. Energy signatures that don't match any registered equipment. As I explained before, that section is merely waste processing. Your equipment must be calibrated incorrectly." The clerk's voice dripped with condescension, clearly believing humans too new to the galaxy to understand proper technology. "My equipment is functioning perfectly," Tai-sung replied, his patience clearly wearing thin. "I'm formally requesting access to investigate. If you continue to deny the request, I'll have to file an official complaint with the Coalition Oversight Committee." The clerk's expression soured. "An official complaint would mean paperwork and scrutiny." "Very well. But you'll need a guide, someone familiar with that section's layout. The tunnels are quite complex." "I can provide a map," another administrator offered quickly. "No," Tai-sung said. "I need someone who works down there. Someone who knows the area intimately." The clerk looked around the office, clearly hoping to find anyone, to assign to this task. His eyes landed on Nari, and his expression showed his distaste for what he was about to suggest. "There is one worker who maintains that entire section alone. She knows every tunnel." He gestured dismissively at Nari. Tai-sung turned to look at her. Nari felt her whole body tense, expecting him to request someone else once he got a good look at her face. But he simply walked over and extended his hand in the human greeting gesture. "Hello, I'm Tai-sung. Would you be willing to guide me through Section 7 Gamma? I'll make sure you're compensated for your time." Nari stared at his outstretched hand. Nobody touched her willingly. Nobody wanted to get that close. She hesitantly reached out one of her smaller manipulator limbs and briefly touched his palm. His skin was warm and smooth, so different from her chitinous exterior. "I am Nari," she said, her translator finally working properly with the new unit. Her voice came out rougher than she intended, rusty from lack of use. "I work that section every night. I can guide you." "Excellent. When can we start?" "Now, if you wish. My shift begins in 2 hours, but I can go early." "Perfect." Tai-sung turned to the clerk. "Please note that Nari is officially assigned to assist with the Earth diplomatic investigation. She should be compensated at specialist consultant rates," the clerk sputtered. "But she's just a waste technician." "She's the expert on the area I need to investigate," Tai-sung interrupted. "That makes her a specialist consultant. Unless you'd prefer I note in my report that the station administration obstructed a diplomatic investigation." The clerk quickly processed the authorization. The 2 Vexathara officials who had been watching this exchange looked scandalized that someone as ugly as Nari was being treated with such respect. They whispered to each other, their antennae twitching with disapproval. Tai-sung either did not notice or did not care. He waited patiently while Nari collected her new translator and the official assignment credentials. Then he gestured toward the door. "Shall we?" Nari led him toward the transport lifts, acutely aware of his presence behind her. She expected questions about her appearance or uncomfortable silence. Instead, Tai-sung asked about the station's layout, about how the waste systems interconnected, about her daily responsibilities. His questions were professional and genuinely curious, as if he actually cared about the work she did. They descended to the lower levels. As they entered Section 7 Gamma, Tai-sung pulled out a handheld scanner and immediately began taking readings. Nari watched him work, noting his methodical approach. He was thorough, missing nothing. "You mentioned energy signatures," she said hesitantly. "Where are they strongest?" "Near the main processing hub, and in several maintenance corridors that the station schematic shows as rarely used." He looked up at her. "Do you go into those areas regularly?" "Every 3 days. They need to be checked for blockages." Nari paused, then decided to share what she had discovered. 3 days ago, I noticed tampering. Several sealed containers had been opened and closed again. I documented it. Tai-sung's expression sharpened. "Can you show me?" She led him to the affected areas. Tai-sung examined the containers carefully, his scanner beeping rapidly. Whatever he was detecting clearly concerned him. He took extensive readings and photographs but said nothing about his conclusions. "Are you permitted to tell me what you're investigating?" Nari asked. "Suspected smuggling," he admitted. "We've tracked illegal weapons shipments to this station, but they disappear once they arrive. The energy signatures match certain types of prohibited technology." Nari felt a chill run through her body. Weapons smuggling was a serious crime. If the smugglers knew she had noticed the tampering, if they knew she was helping investigate them, she could be in danger. But she also could not ignore it. Illegal weapons could kill thousands of innocent beings. They worked for hours. Taesung never complained about the unpleasant environment or the difficult conditions. He asked Nari's opinion frequently, treating her knowledge as valuable. It was such a strange experience that she kept waiting for it to end, for him to remember that she was ugly and therefore worthless. During a break, Taesung offered her a container of liquid. "It's coffee. I had it modified for Vexithera biology by the station's food synthesizers. Thought you might like to try it. It's a human beverage." Nari accepted it cautiously. The liquid was bitter but pleasant, and it gave her a small burst of energy. "Thank you. You didn't have to do that. You're helping me. It's the least I can do." He sat down on the equipment crate, apparently comfortable in the grimy surroundings. "How long have you worked down here?" 5 years. "Do you enjoy the work?" The question surprised her. Nobody had ever asked that before. It's honest work necessary. The station would fail without proper waste management. "That's not what I asked." Nari considered. "I don't mind it. It's quiet, predictable, safe." "Safe from what?" She did not answer. How could she explain to someone like him, someone handsome and important, what it felt like to be so ugly that your own species rejected you? He would not understand, but Taesung seemed to sense her discomfort. "I'm sorry. That was too personal a question. We've only just met." "It's acceptable," Nari said. "I'm not accustomed to conversation. I may respond incorrectly." "There's no incorrect way to respond," he said gently. "I'm just making conversation, getting to know the person who's helping me." He paused. "Can I ask you something? Back in the administration office, those other Vexithera moved away from you, and the clerks treated you poorly." "Why, there it was." The question she had been dreading. Nari set down the coffee container. "Because I'm ugly. My carapace patterns are wrong. My eyes are the wrong color. My antenna is malformed. Among my people, physical beauty is extremely important. I do not possess it. Therefore, I am undesirable." She waited for his agreement, for his understanding nod, for the inevitable agreement that yes, she was hideous, and wasn't it sad how some beings were born wrong. Instead, Taesung looked genuinely confused. "Ugly? I don't see that at all. You're being kind, or you cannot tell the difference in our appearance." "I can see you perfectly fine," he said. "I see someone with an unusual carapace pattern that's actually quite striking. I see amber eyes that are beautiful and unique. I don't see ugly, Nari, I see different." And over the following week, Taesung requested Nari's assistance every day. They explored every corner of Section 7 Gamma, documenting the evidence they found. The energy signatures grew stronger in certain areas, and they discovered hidden compartments built into the waste processing systems. Someone had been very clever about using the station's most neglected areas for illegal activities. Nari found herself looking forward to these investigations, not just because the work was more interesting than her usual tasks, but because of the company. Taesung treated her like a person. He listened when she spoke. He asked her opinions. He shared meals with her during breaks, telling her stories about Earth. "Humans have an interesting history with appearance," Taesung said one day as they ate synthetic protein bars in a maintenance corridor. "For thousands of years we fought wars over differences. Skin color, facial features, body types. We hurt each other over the most superficial things." "What changed?" Nari asked. "We nearly destroyed ourselves. Wars, environmental collapse, resource depletion. We came very close to extinction. When you're facing the end of your species, you realize how stupid it is to hate each other over appearances." He took a drink from his water container. "We had to learn that diversity makes us stronger, that different perspectives and different ways of thinking are valuable. It took us centuries and we still aren't perfect, but we learned." Nari absorbed this information. "Your people judged each other based on appearance even though you're all the same species?" "Yes, it was incredibly foolish." "Then perhaps there is hope for my people," she said quietly. Taesung smiled at her. "There's always hope." He told her about Earth's incredible variety of life. Millions of species, each adapted to different environments. He showed her pictures on his datapad. Creatures that lived in crushing ocean depths, insects with thousands of different forms, birds with brilliant colors and strange shapes, plants that could survive in deserts or frozen tundras. On Earth, we learned that nature loves diversity, he explained. The more variety in an ecosystem, the healthier it is. Monocultures are weak. They're vulnerable to disease and environmental changes. But diverse ecosystems are resilient. They adapt and survive. Nari looked at the images of Earth's wildlife with wonder. So many forms, so many different ways to exist, and humans considered all of them valuable. Your world sounds beautiful, she said. It is. I think you'd like it. The comment made her heart flutter strangely. She quickly focused back on the work. Thinking about visiting Earth, about Tae-sung's world, was another dangerous hope. He was being kind to her during this investigation, but that would end. He would return to Earth, and she would return to her lonely existence in the tunnels. Their investigation took a serious turn on the 8th day. They discovered a heavily encrypted data terminal hidden behind a false panel in a maintenance room. Tae-sung worked on breaking the encryption while Nari kept watch. It took him 3 hours, but he finally accessed the system. What they found was worse than simple smuggling. The terminal contained evidence of a large-scale weapons trafficking operation that involved several high-ranking station officials. They were using the waste systems to move illegal weapons through the station, then shipping them to conflict zones across the galaxy. The profits were enormous, and the conspiracy went deep into the station's administration. This is big, Tae-sung said, his expression grave. Really big. We need to copy all of this data and get it to Coalition security. Nari felt fear creep through her body. The beings involved in this, they're powerful. If they discover we found this, they won't. We'll be careful. He looked at her seriously. I know this is dangerous, Nari. If you want to stop helping, I understand. I can take it from here. She considered his offer. The smart thing would be to walk away, to return to her safe obscurity. But these weapons were being used to kill innocent beings, and Tae-sung had treated her with more kindness and respect than anyone in her entire life. She could not abandon him now. I'll help, she said. I know these tunnels better than anyone. If we need to hide or escape quickly, you'll need me. Tae-sung reached out and gently touched her carapace. The gesture was brief but warm. Thank you. I promise I'll keep you safe. They spent the next 2 days carefully gathering evidence. Nari showed Tae-sung hidden routes through the maintenance tunnels, ways to move through the station without being detected by security cameras. She knew every blind spot, every overlooked passage. Her years of avoiding others had taught her how to be invisible when necessary. During this time, Nari learned more about Tae-sung. He told her about his family on Earth, about his younger sister who studied xenobiology. He talked about human music and art, about the ways humans expressed beauty through creativity rather than biology. We have a saying, he told her. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It means beauty is subjective. What one person finds beautiful, another might not. And that's okay. Both opinions are valid. But everyone among my people agrees that I'm ugly, Nari pointed out. That just means they all have similar cultural conditioning. It doesn't make them right. He paused in his work to look at her directly. Nari, I've traveled to dozens of worlds. I've seen hundreds of species. Every culture has different ideas about beauty. The Matharians find beauty in mathematical symmetry. The Qualics appreciate beings who can process complex gases. The Vrelians value scale patterns that reflect light in specific ways. There's no universal standard. It's all cultural preference. You're saying my people are wrong? I'm saying beauty standards are arbitrary. They change over time and vary between cultures. What matters is how you treat others, your actions, your character. Those things are much more important than what you look like. Nari wanted to believe him, but a lifetime of rejection could not be erased by kind words. Still, when she was with Tae-sung, she almost felt like a normal being. He made her forget for brief moments that she was supposed to be hideous. On the 10th day, they compiled all their evidence into a secure data file. Tae-sung planned to deliver it directly to Coalition security, bypassing the station's compromised administration. But they needed to identify exactly who was involved in the conspiracy before presenting their case. One name kept appearing in the encrypted files, a high-ranking official with significant influence. Hyo Jin, Nari said, reading the name from the terminal. She's a Vexthera administrator. Very powerful. She oversees station security and customs. Taesung's expression darkened. That explains how they've avoided detection. She's been protecting the operation from inside. If she's involved, presenting this evidence will be extremely dangerous. She has many allies, I know. But we have to do it. We have solid proof. He turned to Nari. After we submit this evidence, you should stay away from me for a while. If there's any retaliation, I don't want you caught in it. What about you? You'll be in danger too. I'm a diplomatic official from Earth. They can't touch me without causing an interstellar incident. But you? He stopped himself, but Nari understood what he meant. She had no protection. No powerful family or government to defend her. She was just an ugly waste technician nobody would miss. I understand, she said quietly. Nari, that's not what I meant. It's fine. It's true. I have no importance. Nobody would care if something happened to me. Taesung moved closer, his expression intense. I would care. Very much. The words hit Nari with unexpected force. She looked into his eyes and saw that he meant it. This human, this stranger who had entered her life just days ago actually cared about her well-being. It was incomprehensible. Why? She asked. Why do you care about me? Because you're a good person. Because you're brave. Because you're helping me even though it puts you in danger. He hesitated, then added more quietly. Because I like you, Nari. As a person, as a friend, maybe as something more. But I'm not sure if that's appropriate to say given our circumstances. Nari felt her whole body freeze. Was he suggesting what she thought he was suggesting? That he had feelings for her? Romantic feelings? That was impossible. She was hideous, unlovable. Nobody could have those kinds of feelings for her. You're confused, she said, her voice shaking. You're far from home. You're grateful for my help. That's all this is. No, that's not all this is. Taesung reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. When she did not move, he gently touched her face, his fingers tracing the patterns of her carapace. I see you, Nari, really see you. And what I see is someone remarkable. Nari's thoughts spun chaotically. This could not be real. It was some kind of mistake or misunderstanding. But the warmth of his touch felt real. The genuine emotion in his voice sounded real. Could it be possible? Could someone actually find her attractive? No, she could not let herself believe it. The disappointment when the truth revealed itself would destroy her. Better to push away these feelings now before they grew strong enough to hurt her. We should finish the work, she said, stepping back from his touch. The evidence needs to be submitted as soon as possible. Taesung looked disappointed but respected her withdrawal. You're right. We'll have time to talk about other things after this is over. Nari nodded, but privately Taesung scheduled a meeting with the Coalition Security Council for the following day. He planned to present all their evidence directly to the council members, bypassing the station's compromised administration entirely. Nari spent the night organizing the final documentation, ensuring everything was properly cataloged and verified. She worked in her quarters, reviewing files on her personal terminal. Around midnight, her door chimed. Nari felt a spike of fear. Nobody ever visited her. She checked the security screen and saw Taesung standing in the corridor. She opened the door cautiously. Is something wrong? She asked. No. I just wanted to check on you. He held up a container. I brought tea this time. Another earth beverage. Thought you might like it. Despite her better judgment, Nari let him in. Her quarters were tiny and sparse, containing only the basic necessities. She felt embarrassed by how bare everything was, but Taesung did not seem to notice or care. He sat on the floor since her furniture was designed for her body shape, not his. They drank the tea together. It was warm and soothing, with a delicate flavor that reminded Nari of the flowering vines that grew on her homeworld. She had not thought about her homeworld in years. Thinking about it hurt too much. Are you nervous about tomorrow? Taesung asked. Yes, you're confronting powerful beings. They won't surrender quietly. I know, but we have solid evidence. The council will have to act. He studied her face in the dim lighting of her quarters. After this is over, what will you do? Return to my work, I suppose. Same as always. You could do more, you know. With your knowledge of station systems, you could work in engineering, security, even administration. Nari made a soft clicking sound that was the Vexthara equivalent of bitter laughter. Nobody would hire me for those positions. You've seen how others react to my appearance. Then they're fools. Perhaps. But they're fools who control employment opportunities. Tae-sung was quiet for a moment. What if you didn't work here anymore? What if you went somewhere else? Somewhere that people wouldn't judge you based on Vexthera beauty standards? Like where? Like Earth or any of dozens of human colonies. We could use people with your expertise. And humans don't know enough about Vexthera culture to have opinions about your appearance. Nari felt her hearts begin to race. You're suggesting I leave the station? Leave my people? Your people rejected you, Tae-sung said gently. Maybe it's time to find new people. People who would appreciate you. It was a tempting fantasy. To go somewhere she was not known. Where her appearance was simply different, not disgusting. Where she might be valued for her skills and knowledge instead of judged for her asymmetrical carapace. But it was still just a fantasy. I couldn't. I have no credentials. No formal education. I'm just a waste technician. You're more than that. Much more, but I won't push. Just think about it. He finished his tea and stood to leave. At the door he paused. Nari, whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that meeting you has been one of the best parts of my assignment here. You're remarkable, and I hope someday you'll believe that about yourself. After he left, Nari sat in the darkness of her quarters thinking about his words. Part of her wanted desperately to believe them. But another part, the part that had learned harsh lessons about hope and disappointment, warned her to be careful. Good things did not happen to ugly people like her. She finally fell asleep in the early morning hours, her rest troubled by strange dreams. Nari woke to the sound of her door being forced open. Security officers in full armor stormed into her quarters, weapons drawn. She scrambled backward in confusion and fear. Nari of Clutch Group 7 Tau, you are under arrest for conspiracy, smuggling illegal weapons, and treason against the Galactic Coalition, the lead officer announced. What? No, I didn't. I was investigating. Save your lies for the tribunal. They bound her manipulator limbs with energy restraints and dragged her from her quarters. Nari saw her neighbors watching from their doorways, their expressions showing no surprise that she had turned out to be a criminal. Of course, the ugly one was evil. It confirmed what everyone had always believed about her. They took her to a detention center in the station's security section. As they processed her, Nari learned the full extent of the disaster. Tae-sung had also been arrested, but he was being held in diplomatic detention, a much more comfortable arrangement with full legal protections. Nari, however, was thrown into a standard containment cell with minimal amenities. According to the charges, Nari was the mastermind behind the weapons smuggling operation. The evidence claimed she had used her position in waste reclamation to hide and move illegal cargo. The conspiracy had been operating for years, and she had recruited others to help her, including tricking the naive human diplomat into thinking he was investigating when he was actually documenting her own operation. It was all lies. Obvious lies. But as Nari sat in her cell, she realized with growing horror how believable those lies would be to others. She was ugly. She was isolated. She was a low-level worker with no friends or family to vouch for her character. She was exactly the kind of being that others would assume was corrupt or evil. The charges were filed by Hyo-jin herself, the Vexthera administrator, whose name had appeared repeatedly in the real evidence. She had moved first, flipping the investigation against its investigators, and she had been clever about it. The fabricated evidence against Nari was thorough and professional. Someone had spent considerable time building this false case. Nari realized with a chill that this had been planned from the start. The moment Tae-sung began investigating Section 7 Gamma, Hyo-jin must have identified Nari as a potential scapegoat. Every piece of evidence they had gathered could be reinterpreted to make Nari look guilty instead of innocent. Her knowledge of the systems, her access to restricted areas, her cooperation with the investigation, all of it could be twisted into proof of her guilt, and her appearance made it all so easy to believe. Ugly beings were assumed to have ugly souls. It was a prejudice so deep in Vexthera culture that even outsiders accepted it without question. Days passed. Nari was allowed no visitors except her court-appointed legal representative, a disinterested Qualix who clearly believed she was guilty and was just going through the motions. Through the transparent walls of her cell, she could see other prisoners being visited by family and friends. She had no one. The station's information networks buzzed with the scandal. Nari heard guards discussing it, heard the news broadcast from nearby terminals. The story had spread across the station and beyond. The ugly Vexthara waste technician, who had been secretly running a weapons smuggling operation for years. The poor human diplomat she had, fooled into helping her gather evidence that she then tried to use against legitimate officials. Yojin gave interviews expressing her shock and disappointment that one of her own species could betray the coalition so thoroughly. She spoke with false sadness about how Nari's appearance had perhaps driven her to evil, how the isolation caused by her ugliness had twisted her mind. It was a masterful performance that generated sympathy while reinforcing every prejudice about Nari. In her cell, Nari felt herself breaking. She had spent her whole life being judged and rejected for her appearance. She had accepted her isolation as the price of being ugly, but now she was being accused of terrible crimes, and that same ugliness was being used as evidence of her guilt. It was too much. The unfairness of it crushed down on her like a physical weight. One night, nearly a week after her arrest, Nari finally shattered. The loneliness and despair that she had kept contained for years broke free. She curled into the smallest shape possible and began to keen, the mournful clicking sound that Vexithara made when experiencing profound grief. She had tried so hard to be good, to be useful, to not burden anyone with her presence. She had hidden herself away, doing necessary work that nobody else wanted to do. She had helped Taesung investigate real criminals. She had done everything right, and none of it mattered. She was ugly, and in the eyes of the galaxy that made her guilty. That made her disposable. That made her something to be thrown away without a second thought. I'm too hideous to be loved, she clicked between sobs, speaking to the empty cell in her own language. I'm too ugly to matter, too deformed to be trusted. Even my clutch mother knew it when she looked at me. She knew I was wrong. Everyone knows. Everyone has always known. The grief poured out of her in waves. Years of rejection, a lifetime of loneliness. The brief, foolish hope that Taesung's kindness had sparked, now extinguished by the harsh reality of her situation. She had been stupid to hope. Ugly beings did not get happy endings. Through her tears, she thought about Taesung. He was probably being released already. The Earth Diplomatic Corps would protect him, prove his innocence, send him home. He would return to his beautiful planet with its millions of species and its humans who had learned to value diversity. He would forget about the ugly alien who had briefly crossed his path, and Nari would rot in this cell, convicted of crimes she did not commit, remembered by nobody except as a cautionary tale about the evil that ugliness could breed. She clicked her grief song louder, not caring who heard. Let them hear. Let them know the pain they caused with their judgnery. Lost track of time in her cell. Days blurred together in a haze of despair. She stopped eating the meals they provided. She stopped responding to her legal representative's questions. What was the point? The trial was scheduled for the following week, and the outcome was predetermined. Her ugliness had condemned her long before any evidence was considered. Then, on what might have been the 8th or 9th day of her imprisonment, the lights in her cell suddenly went dark. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in dim red. Alarms began to sound throughout the detention center. Nari heard guards running past her cell, shouting about a security breach. She stood up, confused and wary. Was this an escape attempt by other prisoners? Some kind of attack on the station? The cell's transparent wall suddenly sparked and went opaque. Then, impossibly, the energy barrier that held her inside failed. The doorway stood open. Nari remained where she was. Escaping would only confirm her guilt. She would not run, even if given the chance. Footsteps approached her cell. A figure entered through the open doorway, and Nari's heart nearly stopped. It was Taesung. He looked disheveled and determined, carrying some kind of technical device that was still sparking with electricity. Taesung, what are you doing? You'll be arrested! Already under house arrest, he said. Figured I might as well make it worth their while. He moved toward her quickly. We need to go now. I'm not escaping. That will only make things worse. You're not escaping. I'm breaking in to talk to you. There's a difference. He gestured at something behind him, and Nari realized he was recording everything. A small drone camera hovered in the corridor, documenting his actions. I needed to see you. They wouldn't let me visit. Said it would contaminate the investigation. You shouldn't be here. You'll damage your diplomatic standing. I don't care. Taesung moved closer, and Nari could see the strain on his face. He had not been sleeping well. Nari, I've been working day and night to prove your innocence. The Earth Diplomatic Corps has been analyzing the evidence. We know you're being framed. We know Hyojin is behind the real smuggling operation. Knowing it and proving it are different things, I know. That's why I'm here. He reached out slowly, telegraphing his movements. I heard you. 3 nights ago. Your cell audio was accidentally broadcasted on the guard frequency. I heard you clicking your grief song. I heard what you said. Nari felt shame wash over her. He had heard her at her lowest moment. He had heard her pathetic sobbing about being too ugly to love. She wanted to hide, to disappear, to never face him again. Please don't, she whispered. Don't talk about it. It's humiliating enough. No, we're going to talk about it. Taesung stepped fully into her cell, ignoring the alarms still blaring around them. You said you're too hideous to be loved. You said you're too ugly to matter. You said everyone has always known you were wrong. Stop. Please stop. No, because you need to hear this. He moved closer until he was right in front of her. You're not hideous, Nari. You're not too ugly to love, and you're not wrong. You're just saying that to make me feel better. I'm saying it because it's true. He reached out and gently touched her carapace, the same way he had before. I'm saying it because somewhere along the way, I fell for you, completely. And I know this is terrible timing, and I know we're in the middle of a crisis, but I heard you sobbing in that cell, believing you were unlovable. And I couldn't let you believe that for one more second. Nari felt something break inside her chest, not in a painful way, but like a damn giving way. You can't have feelings for me. Look at me. I am looking at you. I've been looking at you for weeks. And I see someone brave and kind and brilliant. I see someone who helped a stranger investigate dangerous criminals. I see someone who's been hurt her whole life but still chose to do the right thing. His hand moved to her face, cupping the side of her head gently. I see someone beautiful. I'm not. Everyone says everyone is wrong. Taesung's voice was firm now, almost fierce. I don't care what Vexithera beauty standards are. I don't care what your clutch mother thought or what strangers on the street think. They're all wrong. Beauty isn't about symmetry or eye color or shell patterns. It's about who you are as a person. And you, Nari, are one of the most beautiful beings I've ever met. Nari's defenses crumbled. The wall she had built around her hearts, the protective barrier that had kept her safe from hope and disappointment, shattered completely. Tears began flowing from her compound eyes, a rare thing for her species. She made a sound halfway between a click and a sob. I don't know how to believe you. Then I'll keep telling you until you do. Taesung moved closer, and Nari realized he was going to embrace her. She should pull away. She should maintain distance. But she could not move. She did not want to move. His arms wrapped around her body, adapting to her different shape. He pulled her close, holding her with a tenderness that Nari had never experienced. She could feel the warmth of his body, smell his strange mammalian scent, hear his heart's beating steadily in his chest. And for the first time in her entire life, Nari felt safe, protected, valued. She wrapped her manipulator limbs around him, holding on desperately. The sobs came harder now, but they felt different. Not just grief, but release, years of pain flowing out of her while Taesung held her steady. I'm sorry, she managed to say between sobs. I'm sorry I pushed you away before. I was scared, I know. It's okay, I understand. I thought you would realize I was ugly and leave. I thought your kindness was temporary. My kindness isn't temporary. Neither are my feelings. He stroked her carapace gently, a soothing gesture. And I'm not going anywhere. We're going to fight this together. I'm going to prove your innocence, and then we're going to deal with Hyojin and her conspiracy, and then we're going to figure out what comes next for us. They'll convict me, Nari said. Everyone already believes I'm guilty. Let them believe it for now. I'm building a case that will destroy Hyojin's lies completely. He pulled back slightly to look at her face. I have allies working on this. Human xenobiologists, cultural anthropologists. And I've discovered something important about your appearance, something that changes everything. What could possibly change? I'll explain at the trial. But trust me, Nari, your so-called ugliness isn't what your people claim it is. They've been lying to themselves for generations. The alarms stopped suddenly. Nari heard guards approaching rapidly. Taesung stepped back but kept one hand on her shoulder. I have to go. They'll arrest me for real now, but it was worth it. He smiled at her. I needed you to know the truth. I needed you to understand that you are loved. By me. Completely. And nothing about your appearance changes that. Guards burst into the cell, weapons drawn. They grabbed Tai-sung and pulled him away from Nari. He did not resist, but he kept his eyes on her the whole time. I'll see you at the trial, he called out as they dragged him away. Remember what I said? You are beautiful. You are loved. Hold on to that. The guards hauled him out of sight. The energy barrier snapped back into place, sealing Nari in her cell once more. But everything had changed. The darkness did not feel as heavy. The loneliness did not cut as deep, because Tae-sung had said he loved her. He had held her like she was precious. He had looked at her face and called her beautiful. Nari sank to the floor of her cell, but this time she was not sobbing in despair. She was crying with something that felt dangerously like hope. He had said her appearance was not what everyone claimed. He said the Vexithera had been lying about something. What could he possibly mean? She did not understand. But for the first time since her arrest, she felt a tiny spark of possibility. Maybe, just maybe, this nightmare could end differently than she expected. Tae-sung loved her. He had risked everything to tell her that. He had broken into a secure detention facility just to hold her and tell her she mattered. Nari wrapped her arms around herself, trying to preserve the warmth of his embrace. She had never been held like that before. She had never been told she was beautiful by someone who looked at her with such genuine emotion. It changed something fundamental inside her. She could not explain it, but she felt different, stronger. Like Tae-sung's love had given her a kind of armor against the judgment of others. The trial was in 5 days. Tae-sung had promised to reveal something important, something that would change everything. Nari did not know what it could be, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty now. She was not alone anymore. Someone in this vast galaxy saw her truly and loved what he saw, and somehow, impossibly, that made all the difference. For the first time in years, Nari allowed herself to hope that the universe might hold something better for her than a life lived in shadows. Tae-sung had seen her in the light and had not turned away. Maybe, just maybe, others could learn to do the same. She settled into her sleeping position and clicked a soft melody. Not a grief song this time, but something older, a song of gratitude, a song of tentative joy. She was ugly, everyone had always said so. But one human disagreed, and for now that was enough. The tribunal chamber was filled to capacity. The trial of Nari had become a major story across the station and beyond. The ugly Vexithara, who had allegedly betrayed the coalition, was news that everyone wanted to follow. Representatives from dozens of species filled the observation galleries, while news drones captured every moment for broadcast across the galaxy. Nari sat in the defendant's enclosure, her limbs bound with energy restraints even though she had shown no signs of violence. The restraints were for show, she realized. They made her look dangerous, guilty. The tribunal judges sat in their elevated positions, 3 beings from different species chosen for their supposed impartiality. Nari recognized the signs of prejudice in their body language. They had already decided she was guilty. This trial was just a formality. Hyojin sat in the prosecution section, surrounded by expensive legal representatives. She wore formal robes that displayed her perfect Vexithera beauty. Her carapace gleamed with symmetrical patterns. Her violet eyes sparkled with confidence. Next to her, Nari knew she looked like exactly what everyone believed her to be. A broken, twisted creature capable of terrible crimes. Tai-sung entered the chamber under guard. He had been allowed to testify as a witness, though his diplomatic status had been suspended pending the outcome of the trial. He was accused of being manipulated by Nari, portrayed as a naive human who had been fooled by her schemes. As he was escorted to the witness area, he looked directly at Nari and gave her a small, encouraging nod. The prosecution presented their case first. They displayed all the falsified evidence with professional efficiency. Financial records showing payments to Nari from smuggling operations, security footage that appeared to show her accessing restricted areas, testimony from other workers who claimed to have seen her behaving suspiciously, communication logs that seemed to prove she was coordinating with known criminals. It was all lies, but it was convincing. Nari watched the tribunal judges absorbing the information, their expressions growing more severe. The observers in the galleries whispered among themselves. The news drone zoomed in on Nari's face, broadcasting her ugliness to the entire galaxy as proof of her corrupt nature. Hyojin herself delivered the final prosecution statement. "It pains me to see one of my own species fall so far," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "But we must face the truth. Nari's physical deformities marked her from birth as an aberration. Such irregularities in our kind often indicate deeper problems: psychological damage, moral corruption. She was isolated because her appearance disturbed others, and in that isolation, she turned to evil. It is tragic but predictable." The words cut deep, not because Nari believed them, but because so many others did. She saw beings nodding in agreement, heard the whispered confirmations that yes, of course the ugly one was guilty. Ugliness and evil went hand in hand, didn't they? Then it was the defense's turn. Nari's court-appointed representative stood reluctantly and called Tai-sung as the first witness. Tai-sung took the stand with calm confidence that seemed out of place, given the overwhelming evidence against Nari. "Ambassador Tai-sung," the defense attorney began, clearly just going through the motions. "You worked with the defendant during your investigation. Did she ever give you reason to suspect she was involved in criminal activities?" "No, in fact, the exact opposite. Nari was the one who first noticed the tampering that led us to uncover the real smuggling operation. The prosecution claims you were manipulated, that the defendant fed you false information to make herself look innocent. The prosecution is lying." Tai-sung's words were clear and firm. A ripple of shock went through the chamber. "Everything Hyojin has presented is fabricated. I have proof." The head judge leaned forward. "Ambassador, you are making serious accusations. I'm presenting the truth, and I request permission to call expert witnesses from Earth who can provide critical information about this case." Hyojin stood quickly. "Objection. The defense cannot suddenly introduce new witnesses without proper notice. These witnesses arrived at the station yesterday with information directly relevant to the defendant's innocence. The defense has the right to present all available evidence." Tai-sung looked directly at the judges. "Unless this tribunal is more interested in a convenient conviction than actual justice?" The judges conferred briefly. Finally, the head judge announced, "We will allow the expert witnesses, but they must be relevant to the charges at hand." Tai-sung called his first witness, a human woman named Dr. Ji-woo, a xenobiologist specializing in insectoid species. She carried a datapad filled with research files and approached the witness stand with academic authority. "Dr. Ji-woo, please tell the tribunal about your recent research regarding the Vexthara species." Tai-sung began. "Certainly. My team has been studying ancient Vexthara genetic records for the past 2 years. We've made some fascinating discoveries." She activated a holographic display that showed complex genetic sequences. The Vexthara have several distinct genetic lineages dating back thousands of generations. One particular lineage, which I'll call the first clutch lineage, shows unique markers. "What kind of markers?" "Asymmetrical carapace patterns, shortened antenna, and amber-colored compound eyes." A shocked silence fell over the chamber. Every eye turned to Nari, whose appearance matched that exact description. Dr. Ji-woo continued, "These markers were once considered signs of leadership and wisdom in ancient Vexthara culture. The first clutch were the original explorers and philosophers of the species. They were revered." Hyojin jumped to her feet. "This is irrelevant ancient history. Your modern standards are based on prejudice, not science," Dr. Ji-woo interrupted. "The genetic shift toward symmetry and violet eyes occurred only about 800 years ago, due to a population bottleneck. A disease wiped out most of the first clutch lineage. The survivors were predominantly from what we now recognize as the standard Vexthara appearance. Cultural beauty standards changed to reflect the dominant surviving population, but this was a recent cultural construct, not an ancient truth." Tai-sung pulled up more holographic images. "These are ancient Vexthara religious texts and historical documents. All of them show the first clutch lineage in positions of honor. They were teachers, leaders, spiritual guides. Their appearance was celebrated, not condemned." The tribunal chamber erupted in shocked conversation. Vexthara observers looked stunned. Some appeared defensive, others thoughtful. The tribunal judges demanded silence. Tai-sung called another witness, a human cultural anthropologist named Young-soo, who presented research on how beauty standards evolved and changed across cultures. He showed examples from dozens of species, including humans, where arbitrary physical traits became associated with moral judgment despite having no actual correlation. What we're seeing in the Vexthara treatment of individuals like Nari is a form of systemic prejudice based on recent cultural shifts, not biological reality, Young-Soo explained. The Vexthara people have been discriminating against their own ancient lineage out of ignorance and cultural amnesia. Nari sat in stunned silence, absorbing this information. Her appearance was not wrong. It was not a deformity. It was a marker of an ancient and honored bloodline. Everything she had been taught about herself was a lie. Tae-sung turned to address the tribunal directly. The prosecution has built their entire case on the premise that Nari's appearance indicates moral corruption. They have used her physical characteristics as evidence of her guilt. But we have proven that those characteristics are actually markers of a prestigious genetic lineage. The real question is, why didn't the Vexthara government know this? Or did they know and hide it? Hyojin's perfect composure cracked. This is absurd. Some human researchers claiming to understand our culture better than we do. We don't claim to understand your culture better, Dr. Jiwoo said calmly. We simply did the genetic research your people apparently never bothered to do. Or perhaps someone did the research and suppressed it because it undermined the power structures built on prejudice. Tae-sung pulled up the final piece of evidence. This is the real smuggling data we recovered from Section 7 Gamma. You'll notice that Hyojin's identification codes appear throughout these files. She's been running the weapons trafficking operation for at least 3 years, using her position as security administrator to avoid detection. When I began investigating, she fabricated evidence against Nari because Nari was the perfect scapegoat, someone the station would be all too willing to believe was guilty because of her appearance. The holographic display showed damning evidence, properly verified and authenticated by Earth's diplomatic security teams. Financial transactions, communication logs, security footage showing Hyojin accessing the same areas where weapons were stored. It was overwhelming and irrefutable. Hyojin tried to maintain her composure. These records are clearly fabricated by the human to protect his accomplice. They're verified by 3 independent coalition security agencies, Tae-sung said. Agencies that had no connection to this case until we presented them with the evidence. You're done, Hyojin. The tribunal judges called for a recess to review all the new evidence. Nari was returned to her holding cell, but this time the guards who escorted her seemed uncertain. Their earlier confidence in Hin the days following the trial. Station Terminus 7 transformed around Nari. Where once she had walked through corridors with beings stepping away in disgust, now they stopped and stared with curiosity and sometimes awe. Vexthara, who had previously avoided her, now approached with hesitant apologies. Some asked about her genetic lineage. Others wanted to know if she could help them trace their own ancestry. The station administrator, a nervous Vrelian named Kangdae, offered Nari a formal apology and a promotion to chief systems engineer, along with a substantial financial settlement for the wrongful imprisonment. The quarters she had occupied for years were suddenly deemed unsuitable for someone of her newly recognized status. They offered her luxury accommodations in the station's finest residential section. Nari accepted the apology, but declined the promotion and new quarters. She did not want to be celebrated any more than she had wanted to be condemned. The sudden reversal from outcast to honored elder lineage felt just as false as the previous prejudice. She was still the same person she had always been. Nothing about her had actually changed except others' perception. The Vexthara government sent an official delegation to the station, requesting that Nari return to the homeworld. They wanted her to serve as a cultural liaison, helping to educate the population about the first clutch lineage. They spoke of ceremonies and honors, of correcting historical wrongs and ensuring that others like her would never face discrimination again. It was a generous offer. A month ago, Nari would have desperately wanted such acceptance from her people. But now, sitting in a conference room listening to officials speak about her as if she were a symbol rather than a person, she felt oddly detached from it all. Tae-sung sat beside her during the meeting. Having been invited as the human who had helped uncover the truth, Nari found herself glancing at him frequently, drawing comfort from his steady presence. He had been staying at the station while the diplomatic fallout from the trial was resolved. Hyojin's conspiracy had exposed corruption at multiple levels of station administration, and Tae-sung's investigation had sparked a broader coalition inquiry. After the Vexthara delegation left, promising to return for her answer in a few days, Nari and Tae-sung walked through the station gardens together. It was the first time they had been truly alone since his dramatic rescue of her from the detention cell. "What will you do?" Taesung asked as they paused near a viewing port overlooking the planet below. "I don't know," Nari admitted. "Everything I thought I understood about my life has changed. I was the ugly outcast who deserved nothing. Now I'm supposedly a precious genetic legacy who deserves everything, but I don't feel different. I'm still just Nari. You were always just Nari. That was always enough." Taesung leaned against the viewing port. "But you have options now. Real options. Your people want to make amends. That's not nothing. Do they want to make amends to me, or do they want to make themselves feel better about their prejudice?" Nari clicked softly. "I listen to them talk and I hear guilt, shame, the desire to fix their image, but I don't hear genuine understanding of what they did to me. To others like me, that might come with time. Cultural change is slow. Perhaps." Nari turned to look at him directly. "What about you? Your assignment here is complete. Will you return to Earth?" Taesung was quiet for a moment. "I've been offered a new position. Earth is establishing its first cultural exchange program with the Vexthara people, an ambassador role based partly on the homeworld and partly on human colonies. The idea is to help both species understand each other better and to ensure that the historical research about the first clutch lineage is properly shared and preserved. That sounds like important work." "It is. But I haven't accepted it yet." He turned to face her fully. "Because the position comes with something I need. A diplomatic partner. Someone who understands both Vexthara culture and the scientific perspective that humans bring. Someone who could help bridge the gap between our peoples." Nari's hearts began to beat faster. "You're asking me to work with you?" "I'm asking you to come with me. Not as an employee or an assistant, but as a partner. In the work and in everything else." Taesung reached out and took her manipulator limb in his hand. "I meant what I said in that cell, Nari. I love you. Not because of your genetic lineage or in spite of your appearance, but because of who you are. And I want to build a future with you if you'll have me." Nari felt overwhelmed by emotion. "I've never been wanted. Not like this. I don't know how to be someone's partner. I don't know how to be loved. Neither do I, really. I've never felt this way about anyone before." Taesung squeezed her limb gently. "We'd figure it out together. One day at a time. Your people would accept us, a human and a Vexithara. Humans have learned that love transcends species boundaries. We won't be the first mixed species couple, and we won't be the last. My family will welcome you because you make me happy. That's all that matters to them." Nari looked out at the stars beyond the viewing port. Her whole life had been defined by her species' rejection. She had learned to live small, to hide, to expect nothing. Now she was being offered everything. Acceptance, purpose, love. It was terrifying and exhilarating. "If I accept your people's offer," she said slowly, "I would return to the Vexithara world. I would be surrounded by the same culture that hurt me. Even if they're trying to change, even if they honor the first clutch now, I would still be among beings who judged me my entire life. That's true. But if I go with you, I leave all of that behind. I choose a different path. A path with you. Also true." Taesung waited, not pressuring her. "Whatever you decide, I'll support you. If you need to go back to your people, to help them change, I understand. Your work there would be important." Nari turned from the stars to look at him. This human who had seen her when she was invisible, who had held her when she believed herself unlovable, who had risked everything to prove her innocence and reveal the truth about her heritage. "You told me something once," she said. "That home isn't a place. It's people who see you truly. I remember. You see me truly. You always have. From the very first day you looked at me without judgment, without the prejudice of my people's beauty standards. You saw Nari, not the ugly Vexithara or the precious first clutch lineage. Just me. I still do." Nari moved closer to him, carefully arranging her body to embrace him the way he had embraced her. "Then my choice is simple. My home is with you, wherever that takes us." Taesung wrapped his arms around her, and Nari felt the same warmth and safety she had felt in the detention cell. But this time there was no despair, no grief. Only joy and hope and the possibility of a future she had never dared to imagine. "There's something else you should know about the position," Taesung said against her carapace. "It's not just diplomatic work. The program includes research expeditions. We'd be traveling to different worlds, studying how various species understand beauty and culture, documenting stories like yours, where prejudice based on appearance caused harm. The goal is to create educational resources that might help other species avoid the same mistakes. Traveling between worlds, Nari said softly. Seeing the galaxy. With you, with me, if you want that. I want that very much. They stood together at the viewing port for a long time watching the stars. Nari thought about the waste technician she had been just weeks ago, hiding in the shadows, believing herself unworthy of love or respect. That version of herself felt like a different being now. She had not really changed. She was still asymmetrical, still had amber eyes and a shortened antenna, still had the same carapace patterns she had always possessed. But now she understood that those features were not flaws. They were simply part of who she was, connected to a history her people had forgotten. More importantly, she had learned that her value as a being did not depend on how others perceived her appearance. Taesung had taught her that. His love had given her the strength to see herself clearly, without the distortion of prejudice. The next day, Nari met with the Vexthera delegation. She thanked them for their offer but declined the position on the home world. Instead, she proposed something different. She would work with the Earth Vexthera Cultural Exchange Program, visiting the home world regularly to share what she learned from other cultures. She would help educate her people not through ceremonies and symbols, but through genuine cultural exchange and understanding. The delegation was disappointed but agreed to her terms. They recognized that having Nari work with the human program might actually be more effective than keeping her confined to one world. Preparations for departure took 2 weeks. During that time, something unexpected happened. Other workers from the lower station levels, beings who had been overlooked and dismissed, approached Nari with their own stories. Not all of them were Vexthera or shared her genetic markers, but many had experienced similar discrimination for different reasons. They had formed an informal support group and they wanted her to know she had allies.